One day, a bank called, saying I owed $350,000 a loan I never signed. The gut punch. My parents used my identity to borrow it all to save my brother's crumbling tech startup. When I said no to paying, they didn't just walk away. They sued me, gunning for everything I owned. What followed was a nightmare that tore my family apart and dragged us all into court. Before I tell you how this nightmare began, let me know where you're watching from. Subscribe for more family drama stories that could save you. I'm Melissa Carter, 35 years old, a marketing manager living in Denver. To understand how my family could betray me over $350,000, you need to know where it all started. My childhood in Colorado Springs, a middle-class suburb about an hour south of here. Growing up, our house looked like any other on the block. Two-story neat lawn, American flag by the door. But inside, things were never quite equal. My parents, Diane and Robert Miller, raised me and my older brother, Stephen, who's 3 years older. From as far back as I can remember, Stephen was their golden child, the one who could do no wrong no matter how many times he messed up. I was the responsible one, always expected to have it together. If I brought home an A on a math test, my mom Diane would ask why it wasn't an A+. But if Stephen scraped by with a D, they'd pat him on the back saying he's trying his best. For his 16th birthday, they bought him a shiny red pickup truck, even though he'd failed his driver's test twice. Me, I got a secondhand backpack for mine, and a lecture about earning my own way. It wasn't abusive, not in the way you might picture, just a quiet, constant unfairness that sank in over time, like water wearing down a stone. Stephen had big dreams, always chasing the next get-rich-quick idea. By high school, he was talking about starting his own tech company inspired by the dot-com boom. My parents ate it up, calling him a visionary. Meanwhile, I worked weekends at a local diner, saving every tip to afford college. When I got into the University of Colorado with a partial scholarship, I was thrilled, but my parents didn't contribute a dime. They said they needed to save for Stephen's future. I took out student loans, worked 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, and lived off instant noodles to make ends meet. By the time I graduated with a marketing degree, I was $40,000 in debt. Stephen, on the other hand, never finished college. He enrolled in 3 different schools over 6 years, dropping out each time to pursue an opportunity. My parents paid his tuition, covered his rent in fancy off-campus apartments, and gave him spending money for new laptops and software. They must have spent over $100,000 on his half-baked ideas, while I was still paying off my loans years later. When he moved back home at 25, jobless and broke, they let him live rent-free in the basement, saying he needed time to find his path. By my late 20s, I'd clawed my way to some stability. I landed an entry-level marketing job in Denver, shared a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, and budgeted every penny to chip away at my debt. I was proud of what I'd built, no safety net, just hard work. Stephen, though, kept failing upward. At 28, he launched his first startup, a fitness app that tanked in 6 months. My parents bailed him out, co-signing loans and paying off his credit card bills. When I got a promotion at 30, my dad Robert called to congratulate me, then asked if I could help Stephen out with a few $100 for a new project. "You're doing so well, Melissa," he said. "Your brother just needs a little boost." That wasn't the only time. Over the years, they'd call whenever Stephen hit a rough patch. His car needed repairs, I should pitch in because I was good with money. He wanted to attend a tech conference in Vegas. Maybe I could cover his flight for his birthday. Each time, I felt this mix of resentment and guilt. I'd usually cave, telling myself it was just family helping family, but it was never a one-off. It became this unspoken rule. Since I was successful, I owed Stephen a piece of it. Family dinners got tense as I hit my 30s. I'd mention a new client at work, or a small investment I'd made, and my mom would pivot to Stephen's latest struggle, how his new app wasn't getting investors, or how he was this close to a big break. The message was clear. My success wasn't something to celebrate. It was a resource to fix Stephen's problems. Last Christmas, I made the mistake of sharing that I'd been promoted to marketing manager with a nice raise. Before dessert, my dad pulled me aside. "Steven's startup is in trouble," he said. "With your new salary, a couple thousand could really turn things around for him." I dodged the request, saying I'd check my budget, but as I left, I overheard my mom telling Steven, "Don't worry, we'll work something out with Melissa. She's always been too independent for her own good." That stung, but I still craved their approval. Deep down, I was that kid who wanted them to see my hard work, to be proud of me, the way they were of Steven even when he crashed and burned. I thought if I kept achieving, they'd finally value me the same. That hope kept me tied to them, even as the unfairness piled up. Then one Tuesday in March, everything changed. I was at my desk in Denver finalizing a campaign pitch when my phone buzzed with a call from First National Bank. I almost ignored it, thinking it was a spam call, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was polite, but firm. "Ms. Carter, we need to discuss your account. You're listed as the primary borrower on a personal loan for $350,000, and payments are overdue." My stomach dropped. I'd never taken out a loan like that, never even applied for one. I stammered, trying to explain it was a mistake, but the banker cut me off. "We have your signature on the documents, ma'am. Can you come in to discuss this?" I hung up my hands, shaking. My mind raced, piecing together the only explanation that made sense. My parents. Steven. Another one of his failed ventures. I grabbed my keys and headed to my car, knowing I had to confront them. Whatever they'd done this time, it wasn't just a few $100, it was my entire future on the line. I drove an hour from Denver to my parents' house in Colorado Springs, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. That bank call saying I owed $350,000 kept replaying in my head. By the time I pulled into their driveway, I was a mess of anger and dread. The same American flag still hung by the door, but the house I grew up in felt like enemy territory. I needed answers, and I wasn't leaving without them. Inside, my parents, Diane and Robert, were at the dining table with my brother Steven. The smell of roasted chicken hit me, but the mood was anything but cozy. Steven's new SUV was parked outside, another gift from Mom and Dad, no doubt. They all looked up surprised, like I'd crashed their private party. "Melissa, what's wrong?" My mom asked, her voice too calm, like she already knew why I was there. I didn't sit down. "The bank called," I said, my voice shaking. "They say I owe $350,000 for a loan I never took." "What did you do?" There was a beat of silence, then my dad cleared his throat. "Let's not get dramatic," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit down and we'll explain." I stayed standing, arms crossed, waiting. My mom sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Steven's startup needed capital," she started. "His last app didn't take off, but this new one, it's a game changer. We knew you'd want to help your brother succeed." My jaw dropped. "Help by stealing my identity? You put a loan in my name without asking." My dad's face hardened. "We didn't steal anything," he snapped. "We used your credit because Steven's wasn't strong enough. You're doing fine, Melissa. You can handle the payments." I turned to Steven, who'd been silent, poking at his food. "Did you know about this?" He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "I told them to talk to you, but they said it was handled. I need this Mel. It's my big shot. His big shot. Always his big shot." I exploded. "You think I can just pay $350,000? I'm still paying off student loans. This is fraud, illegal." My mom waved a hand, dismissing me. "Don't throw around words like that. We're family. Families help each other." I laughed, bitter and loud. "Help? You've never helped me? I worked my way through college, scraped by, while you bankrolled Steven's failures." My dad slammed his fork down. "Lower your voice," he barked. "We've decided you're paying this loan. Steven's moving forward with his company, and you're not going to ruin it." I stared, stunned. They'd decided without me. "No," I said, grabbing my purse. "I'm not paying a dime, and I'm reporting this as fraud tomorrow." As I stormed out, my mom called after me. "You walk out that door, Melissa, and you're turning your back on this family." I didn't stop. The drive back to Denver was a blur, tears mixing with rage. I'd spent my life trying to please them, and this was what I got: $500,000 debt and an ultimatum. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing nonstop. Notifications flooded my screen: Facebook, Instagram, texts from coworkers. My mom had posted a long, tearful rant on Facebook tagging me publicly. "Some people forget what family means," it began. "Our daughter, so successful, won't lift a finger to help her struggling brother. It breaks my heart." She painted me as a selfish career woman too greedy to support Stephen's dreams. The post had hundreds of likes, shares, comments, people I barely knew calling me heartless. My aunt in Ohio messaged me, "How could you do this to your parents?" I was shaking, scrolling through the comments when I got another call from the bank. This time, it was worse. Someone had applied for a $10,000 credit line in my name 2 days ago. My heart sank. I pulled up my credit report online, and there it was: a new inquiry, not even tied to the big loan. I called the bank frantic, and after an hour of back and forth, they confirmed the application came from an email linked to Stephen. He'd used my personal info again to cover some urgent startup expense. I felt sick. My own brother, not just complicit, but actively screwing me over. I blocked my parents' numbers, but the damage was spreading. My boss texted asking if everything was okay after seeing my mom's post. A client emailed saying they'd heard things about my reliability. My reputation built over years was unraveling because of their lies. I needed help, so I called Kelly Thompson, my best friend since college. She's a freelance journalist, sharp and fearless, always digging for the truth. I met her at a coffee shop in downtown Denver, spilling everything: the loan, the confrontation, Stephen's new stunt, the Facebook post. Kelly listened, her jaw tight, then grabbed her laptop. "We're fighting this," she said. "First we lock down your credit. Then we figure out what evidence we can get." She helped me file a fraud report with the bank and set up a credit freeze. For a moment, I felt a flicker of control. But that night, my phone lit up with an email from my mom. "Melissa, we need to talk at Reed. Your actions are hurting Stephen's future. We've consulted a lawyer, and if you keep this up, we'll have no choice but to sue you for ruining our family's finances." Attached was a draft of a legal complaint claiming I'd sabotaged Stephen's startup by reporting the loan as fraud. They wanted everything: my savings, my condo, my entire life. The next morning, a process server knocked on my door. I opened it half asleep, and he handed me a thick envelope. My hands shook as I read the first page: Diane Miller and Robert Miller versus Melissa Carter. They'd actually done it, sued me just like they threatened. I sank onto my couch, the papers slipping to the floor. How had it come to this? My family wasn't just trying to guilt me into paying, they were ready to destroy me to protect Stephen's dreams. Those lawsuit papers hit me like a punch to the chest. My parents, Diane and Robert Miller, were suing me, claiming I'd sabotaged their finances by reporting the $350,000 loan as fraud. They wanted everything: my savings, my condo, even my 401k. I sat on my couch, staring at the complaint, my life unraveling in black ink. My family wasn't just guilting me, they were ready to bury me to save Stephen's startup. I called Kelly Thompson the next morning, my voice barely steady. She met me at a coffee shop in downtown Denver, her laptop already open. "This is insane," she said, scanning the papers. "They're trying to scare you into paying. We need a lawyer now." Kelly, a freelance journalist, had a knack for digging up dirt, but this was beyond her expertise. She connected me with Natalie Brooks, a Denver attorney who specialized in financial disputes. Natalie agreed to a free consultation, and we met at her office 2 days later, a sleek space with views of the Rockies. Natalie didn't sugarcoat it. "This is serious, Melissa," she said, flipping through the complaint. "Your parents committed identity theft by using your name for that loan, and your brother's $10,000 credit line is another red flag. Their lawsuit is flimsy, but you need to fight it, or they could win by default." I swallowed hard. Could they go to jail? I asked, still torn despite their betrayal. Natalie paused. That depends on whether you press criminal charges. Right now, we focus on protecting you legally and financially. She laid out the plan: file a formal fraud claim with the bank, gather evidence of my parents' actions, and respond to the lawsuit within 20 days. Document everything, she stressed. Emails, texts, that Facebook post, anything showing they acted without your consent. I nodded, overwhelmed but grateful for her clarity. Kelly jumped in, offering to dig through public records and online activity. If they're sloppy, we'll find something, she said, her eyes glinting. Back home, I started combing through old emails and texts. My inbox was a minefield of guilt trips, messages from my mom about Steven's struggles, or my dad asking for small favors to help him. Then I found an email chain between my parents, forwarded to me by mistake a year ago. My dad wrote, "Melissa won't agree to this up front. Let's set up the loan and deal with her later. She'll come around when Steven's app takes off." My mom replied, "She's too stubborn, but she won't let her brother fail. We'll make it work." My blood ran cold. They'd planned this, knowing I'd say no. I forwarded the emails to Natalie, my hands shaking. She called within hours. "This is gold," she said. "It proves they acted intentionally without your consent. We'll use it in our response and file a counterclaim for emotional distress and defamation based on that Facebook post." I felt a spark of hope, but it was drowned out by dread. Suing my own family? It was surreal. The harassment didn't stop. My parents called from new numbers, leaving voicemails I deleted unheard. My mom showed up at my office once, demanding to talk, until security escorted her out. Steven posted cryptic Instagram stories, quotes like, "Family should lift you up, not tear you down," clearly aimed at me. My extended family piled on too. Cousins I hadn't seen in years texted me about family loyalty. My uncle in Boulder emailed saying I was breaking my parents' hearts. I wanted to scream my side of the story, but Natalie warned me to stay quiet. "Don't give them ammo," she said. Then came an unexpected lifeline. My Aunt Patricia Hayes, my mom's older sister, called out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She distanced herself from the family after a falling out I never understood. "Melissa, I saw your mom's Facebook post," she said, her voice warm but firm. "I know what they're doing. They pulled something similar on me 20 years ago." Over coffee at a quiet Denver cafe, Patricia shared her story. In the 90s, my parents had pressured her to co-sign a loan for their business, promising to pay it back. When they defaulted, her credit tanked, and she lost her savings fighting it. "I cut contact to protect myself," she said. "You're stronger than I was. You're fighting back." Her words hit hard. I wasn't alone. Patricia offered to write a sworn statement for my case, detailing my parents' history of financial manipulation. "You don't owe them your future," she said, squeezing my hand. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen, not as a selfish daughter, but as someone standing up to a pattern of abuse. With Natalie's help, we filed our response to the lawsuit, denying their claims and outlining the fraud. We included the damning emails, Patricia's statement, and screenshots of my mom's Facebook post, which had racked up thousands of views. We also filed a counterclaim, arguing their actions caused me emotional distress and damaged my professional reputation. The bank's fraud investigation was ongoing, but they confirmed the $350,000 loan was flagged as suspicious, and my credit was temporarily frozen to prevent further damage. The stress was crushing. I couldn't sleep, waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, imagining losing everything. My work suffered. I missed deadlines, zoned out in meetings. My boss, usually supportive, pulled me aside. "Melissa, you're not yourself. Take some time if you need it." I couldn't afford to. I'd already burned through savings on legal fees. Natalie's retainer was $5,000, nearly half my emergency fund. I stopped going out, canceled my gym membership, and lived on cheap groceries to stretch every dollar. As the court date loomed, my parents' lawyer sent a settlement offer. I'd pay half the loan, $175,000 over 5 years, and they'd drop the suit. I sat in Natalie's office staring at the proposal. Part of me wanted to take it just to end the nightmare, but Patricia's words echoed, "You don't owe them your future." I looked at Natalie. "No deal," I said, my voice firm. "They did this to themselves. I'm fighting." She nodded, a hint of respect in her eyes. Then we prepped for court. "You're ready for this, Melissa?" The night before our first hearing, I lay awake, legal papers stacked on my nightstand. I thought about my childhood, trying to please my parents, always coming up short next to Stephen. This lawsuit wasn't just about money, it was about control. They'd never seen me as an equal, only a means to prop up their golden child. Tomorrow I'd walk into that courthouse and show them I wasn't their pawn anymore. The Denver courthouse loomed like a fortress, its stone facade cold under the morning sun. I walked up the steps, my briefcase heavy with legal papers, my heart heavier with what lay ahead. Inside, the courtroom smelled of polished wood and old coffee, a sterile stage for my family's betrayal. My parents, Diane and Robert, sat across the aisle with their lawyer, a slick guy in a tailored suit. Stephen was there too, avoiding my gaze, his jaw tight. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a war over who controlled my life. My lawyer, Natalie Brooks, stood beside me, calm and sharp. "Stay focused," she whispered as the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Margaret Ellison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, took her seat. She'd reviewed our filings, my parents' claim that I'd sabotaged their finances by reporting the $350,000 loan as fraud, and our counterclaim for emotional distress and defamation. Today was our chance to lay it all bare. Natalie opened her voice steady. "Your Honor, my client, Melissa Carter, is the victim of identity theft. Her parents used her name to secure a loan without consent, and when she refused to pay, they launched a baseless lawsuit to intimidate her." She presented our evidence, the email chain where my parents admitted to acting without my permission, Aunt Patricia's statement about their past manipulation, screenshots of my mom's Facebook post calling me heartless. Each piece felt like a brick in a wall protecting my future. Their lawyer, Thomas Reed, countered with a performance straight out of a bad drama. "This is about family." "Your Honor," he said, his tone dripping with pity. "The Millers acted in good faith, believing their daughter would support her brother's entrepreneurial dreams. Melissa's refusal has left them financially ruined." I gripped the table, biting back a retort. Good faith. They'd stolen my identity twice, counting Stephen's $10,000 credit line. Judge Ellison wasn't buying it. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Reed, are your clients disputing that they applied for this loan without Ms. Carter's knowledge?" Reed faltered. "Not exactly, Your Honor, but they had an understanding within the family." She cut him off. "An understanding isn't a contract. I'd like to hear from the plaintiffs." My dad took the stand first, his posture rigid. "We've always supported our children," he said, painting a picture of a tight-knit family. "Melissa's success made her the logical choice to help Stephen. We assumed she'd agree." Judge Ellison pressed him. "Did you ask her explicitly to take on a $350,000 loan?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Not in so many words, but we discussed Stephen's needs often." "So no," she said flatly, making a note. My mom was next, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to help my son," she said, dabbing her eyes. "Melissa's so independent, she doesn't understand how hard it is for Stephen." It was a masterclass in manipulation, but the judge stayed stone-faced. "Mrs. Miller, did you write Miss Carter's name on those loan documents?" My mom hesitated, then mumbled, "Yes, but only because we knew she'd help eventually." The courtroom went silent. Natalie objected to the speculation, and the judge sustained it. Stephen's testimony was the worst. He slouched in the witness box, playing the victim. "Melissa's always been jealous of my ideas," he said. "She could have helped, but she chose to tear us apart." I wanted to scream. He'd used my identity for another loan, and he had the nerve to call me jealous. Natalie cross-examined him, holding up the credit report showing his $10,000 application. "Did you submit this in your sister's name?" she asked. Stephen stammered, I needed funds fast. I thought she'd be okay with it." The judge's pen scratched furiously. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. Natalie's advice echoing stick to the facts. I explained how I'd built my life working through college, paying off loans, saving for a future my parents never supported. I never agreed to any loan, I said, my voice steady. They used my name, then sued me when I said no. This isn't about family. It's about control. Their lawyer tried to trip me up, asking if I'd ever helped Stephen before. Yes, I admitted, but small amounts, not $350,000. I never gave them permission to steal my identity. The hearing stretched into the afternoon, tension thick in the air. As Natalie wrapped up presenting the emails as our final blow, I caught my mom's eye. For a split second, I saw something: guilt, maybe regret, but it vanished as she looked away. Judge Ellison adjourned, saying she'd rule within 10 days. I left the courtroom drained but resolute. Whatever happened, I'd fought for myself. 2 days later, Natalie called. Your parents' lawyer reached out, she said. They want to settle outside court. I met her at her office, where she laid out the terms. My parents would pay $100,000 of the loan, Stephen would cover the rest, and they'd drop the lawsuit. In exchange, I'd withdraw my counterclaim and agree not to pursue criminal charges. It's not a full win, Natalie said, but it clears your name and ends this without more legal fees. I wrestled with the decision. Part of me wanted to push for a ruling to see them face the consequences. But I was exhausted financially, emotionally, physically. My savings were nearly gone, my credit still frozen, my career on shaky ground. Aunt Patricia's voice rang in my head. You don't owe them your future. I signed the settlement, feeling a weight lift, even if it wasn't the victory I'd imagined. The bank finalized the fraud claim a week later, removing my name from the $350,000 loan and the $10,000 credit line. My credit score would take months to recover, but I was free legally at least. My mom sent a text the day after we settled. I'm sorry, Melissa, it read. I thought I was doing right by Stephen. I stared at it, torn. Her apology felt real, but it didn't erase the damage. I didn't reply, not yet. My dad and Stephen stayed silent, their distance a cold confirmation of where we stood. Stephen moved back into my parents' basement, his startup dead in the water. My mom, though, kept texting small olive branches I wasn't ready to grab. The settlement forced them to face some consequences. My dad took a second mortgage to cover their share, but it didn't fix us. As I left Natalie's office for the last time, I felt a strange calm. The fight had cost me saving sleep, pieces of my heart, but it gave me something too: clarity. My family saw me as a tool, not a person. That truth hurt, but it set me free. I drove back to my condo, the Denver skyline glowing under dusk, ready to rebuild what they'd tried to take. Driving home from my lawyer's office after signing that settlement, I felt lighter than I had in months. The $350,000 loan was off my name, the $10,000 credit line gone, my future no longer chained to my family's betrayal. But freedom came at a cost: savings drained, career wobbling, and a family fractured beyond repair. As Denver's skyline glowed against the dusk, I knew rebuilding wouldn't just mean money. It meant finding myself again, piece by broken piece. The weeks after the settlement were raw. I'd swing between relief and grief, 1 minute grateful to be free, the next gutted by the family I'd lost, not the one I had, but the one I'd always hoped for. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Nguyen, helped me name it. I was mourning the fantasy of parents who'd love me without strings, a brother who'd see me as more than a bank. You're grieving what never was, she said during a session in her cozy Denver office. That's harder than losing what you had. Her words gave me permission to feel the pain without drowning in it. I threw myself into practical steps. I met with a financial advisor to rebuild my emergency fund, slashed by $5,000 in legal fees. My new budget was tight. No more coffee shop runs, no weekend getaways, but I started saving again, $10 at a time. Work steadied as I refocused, landing a big client that earned me a bonus. I moved to a smaller condo in Denver's Capitol Hill, a sunny one-bedroom that felt like a fresh start. The second bedroom I'd dreamed of for a home office was gone, but this space was mine, free of my family's shadow. My social life shifted too. Some friends drifted away, uneasy with the messiness of my story. "Can't you just make up with them?" one asked over drinks, not grasping how deep the betrayal ran. But others stepped up. Kelly Thompson, my journalist friend, became my rock, checking in with late-night texts or dragging me to hike the Rockies when I got too stuck in my head. Aunt Patricia Hayes, my mom's sister, stayed close, our coffee meetups turning into a bond I hadn't expected. She'd faced my parents' manipulation and come out stronger, proof I could too. About a month after the settlement, my mom Diane called from a new number. I let it go to voicemail, bracing myself. "Melissa, I'm sorry." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we talk?" I listened to it 3 times, torn between anger and a flicker of hope. Dr. Nguyen helped me draft a reply. "I appreciate your apology, Mom, but I need space to heal. Maybe one day." I hit send, my heart pounding. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door cracked open on my terms. My dad Robert and brother Stephen stayed distant. Through a cousin, I heard Stephen was back in my parents' basement, his startup dead, working odd jobs to pay his share of the loan, $175,000. My dad took a second mortgage to cover their $100,000 portion, delaying his retirement. I felt no joy in their struggles, just a quiet acknowledgement that they'd reaped what they sowed. 6 months after the settlement, I found a new purpose. I'd been journaling my story, pouring out the anger, guilt, and clarity. Kelly read it and said, "This could help people. Why not share it?" That sparked an idea, a podcast about family financial abuse, something I'd never known had a name until this nightmare. I called it Breaking the Bank, a nod to how my family tried to break me. I recorded the first episode in my condo using a cheap mic and a blanket to muffle street noise. If your family's ever made you feel like you owe them your future, I started, you're not alone. The podcast took off faster than I expected. Listeners emailed stories, parents draining kids' savings, siblings guilting loans, spouses hiding debts. One woman wrote, "Your story made me check my credit. I found a card I didn't open. Thank you." Each message chipped away at my isolation, turning my pain into a lifeline for others. I upgraded to a small Denver studio, Kelly helping with editing, Patricia cheering me on. By the 1-year mark, Breaking the Bank had thousands of downloads, a community of survivors sharing what I wished I'd known sooner. Boundaries aren't betrayal. They're survival. My mom kept reaching out, small steps toward something new. We met once at a quiet cafe in Colorado Springs. She looked older, her eyes heavy. "I was wrong," she said, no tears this time. "I put Stephen first and I lost you." I nodded, not ready to absolve her, but open to listening. "It'll take time," I said. She agreed, and we parted with a hug, tentative but real. My dad and Stephen, though, were radio silent. I heard through the grapevine they'd downsized to a condo, their finances strained. I wished them no harm, but I didn't miss the chaos they brought. A year after the settlement, I got an email from Stephen late one night. "I've been thinking," he wrote. "I screwed up, Mel. I'm trying to fix things, working therapy. I don't expect you to reply, but I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, emotions swirling. Dr. Nguyen's advice guided me. Healing doesn't mean reconciliation. I saved the email, not ready to respond, but not closing the door forever. One crisp Denver morning, I sat in my podcast studio recording an episode about boundaries. "Saying no doesn't make you selfish," I said into the mic. "It makes you whole." As I hit stop, I realized how far I'd come. The lawsuit had shattered the family I'd clung to, but it built something better, a life rooted in my own worth, surrounded by people who valued me. Kelly, Patricia, my listeners, my story isn't over. Some days I ache for the family I lost, but more often I'm grateful for the strength I found, the community I built, the truth I claimed. If you've faced something like this, know you're not alone. Share your story, maybe in a journal, maybe with someone you trust. It's your first step to healing.